The benefits of practicing Qigong in a group. That is going to be the topic of this episode of Chi Life. Okay, so this one was another request. It's a good one. It's a good general question that I think, I don't know if people wonder about it so much, but certainly people sometimes notice the effect of this as they get into their Qigong practice and they experience practicing Qigong in different contexts. As a lot of you probably know, for the last while, several years, the bulk of the teaching I've done has been online. Now, I do teach some in-person classes as well, but I've done a lot of online teaching, which is it's nice to be able to practice in person together, but there are a lot of benefits learning online as well in terms of flexibility. You can do it in your own time, at your own pace, that's really good. Being able to refer back to materials really easily. Within the courses that we run, there's lots of written material, lots of videos, sometimes lots of diagrams, things like that, and you can go through and you can do your study. And then if you forget something, you go back, look at it again. You can, it's just super, super flexible. As part of these courses, though, we also, interaction is an important part of the learning as well. And so we have regular Q&As where we talk together, and we also have regular group practice sessions, and we also have review sessions where myself or one of the senior instructors work with people one-on-one to see how they're going with practice and fine-tune things and so on. And this is the wonders of modern technology. It's a beautiful thing. It allows us to do so much in powerful, useful ways. Real pain when it doesn't work properly, which happens sometimes. I had a few issues with that over the last day or so. But, just amazing the way we're able to do this and interact all over the world. Now, one of the things quite a few people comment about in terms of the group practice sessions that we have as part of these courses is that they notice the difference that they experience in their Qigong practice when we do a group practice session, even though it's online, even though we're not all physically in the same space, people still notice, and they often have a much more powerful experience with the Qigong practices in an online group than maybe they've had in their practice just by themselves. Now, of course, they continue to have benefit in their practice by themselves, and, as they learn and progress, that can become more and more powerful. Just practicing by yourself is really important too. But they notice there's something extra that happens in a group, even when online. Now, of course, this applies in person as well, that people will often notice that, hey, maybe the energy feels stronger, or some aspects of practices they notice more powerfully when practicing as a group. So there's a few reasons why this is, and a few other benefits that come from practicing in a group as well. One of the big things in terms of practicing in a group is the way our energy interacts with each other. Now, this is maybe easiest to see in person. I'll talk about how it applies online as well. But when we're in a space together with each other, we all have energy flowing within our bodies, but naturally that energy also flows out into our field of energy around us. Our fields of energy overlap with each other and our energy interacts. And so when we all come together and we practice, we do the same practices together, that energy reinforces each other. My energy strengthens the energy of someone else who's also doing the same thing, and their energy strengthens mine and the other person. We have a group energy now, and it makes it much easier, particularly again within a group practice session. It may not necessarily be that we have a really specific, clear focus or intention beyond just doing the practice, but even if our focus is just doing the practice, we're all focused on that. And all of our energy is flowing towards that. And this helps to carry each of us along and to experience that flow of energy more strongly. And therefore the practices can become more powerful in that way. We can sometimes also have a specific, clear intention. And so if everyone in the group has that specific, clear intention, that then reinforces each other as well. And so this is where, particularly sometimes groups for maybe people who are struggling with a particular health issue or something like that, all coming together and practicing with an intention of healing for, whatever it is they're working on. That intention then flows into their energy affects each other, and you get a collective strengthened effect. And so that can be really significant. Again, quite clear when we're in the same space as each other, our energy fields are overlapping, we're affecting each other. Same thing actually occurs online as well, in a somewhat different way, because our energy fields aren't necessarily overlapping, in a very physical, tangible way. But in a sense, we're all actually part of one greater whole, which is all connected as part of one greater field of energy. And this, this includes all over the planet, actually includes out into the depths of space as well. Essentially, everything is part of one greater field. And so when we intentionally connect to each other, even though there may be a great distance between us, and even though we're not either physically present or our quite specific physical energy field around us isn't overlapping, because we're connecting through this field, again, we have this support for one each other and a collective effect where our energy overlaps and supports each other. So that in itself is a great benefit of practicing Qigong together. There are other sort of simpler ancillary benefits to practicing as a group as well. One can simply be motivation, right? Sometimes, you have the best intentions to practice, but if you're left to yourself, it's like, it's maybe hard to motivate yourself to just get in and do it. But if you know you're going to go and meet with some other people, or they're expecting you, or there's a set time you have to be there, sometimes that can get you to go, like, okay, cool, I'm going to go. And then once you're there, well, what are you going to do? Not do your practice now that you're there with the group, now that you've turned up? No, of course you're going to join in. And so that can be a great motivation just in terms of keeping you consistent and getting you to do your practice. It can also be really nice in terms of, to some extent, this is also the group energy effect, but this is more of a psychological part to it, where if you're self-motivated, self-driven all the time, and you're guiding yourself in your practice, sometimes it can be nice to actually just go with the flow and be guided along a little bit as well. I've experienced this myself, where of course I do a lot of teaching of Qigong, and in most situations where I'm doing Qigong, well, of course I do my own practice by myself, but if I'm with a group, most of the time I'm teaching, I'm leading it. But there are times from every now and then where maybe I'm visiting with another teacher or another group, and I just follow along, and that can be a beautiful thing. Sometimes for myself, that has just been so wonderful. It's like, cool. I'm just going to follow along. I'm going to let someone else lead. I'm going to trust them and their ability to do that. Obviously, if they're going to do anything that isn't going to be good, I'm probably going to notice and avoid that. But it's like, I'm just going to follow what they lead in. And that can just be a beautiful, relaxing thing to be able to follow, instead of having to self-motivate and guide yourself. That's a wonderful thing as well. Another benefit of practicing Qigong in groups is, and again, this is connected to the things we've already talked about, but is the social connection. I think sometimes we don't realize just how important social contact is. And in this busy modern day and age, where in many ways we have so many ways to connect to people, often sometimes we don't, and to have some things where we really connect, and sometimes just being in the same space, but opportunity to talk to each other a little bit as well, before or after the class, that can be a really valuable thing too. It's important to our overall development and functioning, particularly important to our cognitive health and well-being. interacting with other people is actually one of the most complex things we can do, because there's so much nuance in our interaction in terms of facial expression and vocal tone and body language and the interplay, because it's not just like one person does one thing, the other person does something else. There's an ongoing interplay, judging, reacting, responding, steering the interaction, and so on, that it's one of the best ways to keep our minds healthy. So really important at any stage of life, really important for a developing child, really important, as we grow into adulthood and so on, to have this social interaction. And then particularly important leading into older age as well, where sometimes cognitive function can start to decline. One of the main best ways to actually maintain healthy cognitive function is to have social interaction. And so, of course, there's lots of Qigong practices themselves, just doing the practice, that is good for our brain and good for the cognitive function. But just the social interaction that can come from practicing together in groups can be really good as well. Some other benefits of practicing in groups, well, in an instructional sort of environment, it does give you the opportunity to maybe receive instruction, to maybe receive feedback from other people. There's that sort of thing as well. But that's more down to the instructional sort of environment rather than necessarily the group environment. So anyway, a few thoughts on some of the benefits of specifically practicing Qigong in groups. Really beneficial to also practice by yourself. I think the ideal world is to have, or the ideal situation is to have a balance of both. There's the benefits we get from practicing a group, the energy reinforcement, the social connection, the motivation, that sort of thing. There's things we get from practicing by ourselves as well, because then we're not being influenced so much by other people's energy. We're able to pay much more attention specifically to ourselves, and we're able to tailor our practice very much to what's going on within us, rather than what's going on collectively within a group. So I think the ideal sort of situation is to have a mix of both, doing your own practice and at least sometimes also practicing in groups. All right. Hopefully that was interesting. I look forward to seeing you on another vlog soon.